like I'm not really all that big on last year's game. It's just mostly imposing our will, just being able to dominate and just, see like the light come out of their eyes in a way. Just kind of like you see the lights fade away, their smile kind of die down.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a great Friday. Dennis Fithian with you here, Maize and Blue Review. Good afternoon, Michigan football. We are ready to get things underway. You may have recognized the voice there at the beginning. That was Michigan sophomore linebacker Junior Colson talking about Michigan State and the game tomorrow night. Thanks to the Inside the Trenches podcast for that audio as we get ready to kick things off on this Friday. We want you to participate today. We always want you to participate today, but we've actually put it right in the menu today of feedback that we want from you and your thoughts on this game. We'll be putting those thoughts up on the screen to see right where you are at. I've got a prediction on the game, how the game is going to go from the first quarter to halftime through the end, and I will get to that coming up. And you might have guessed that we would be previewing this game, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. We're presented by Rivals. It's great to be here, and you had the bye week, and there are a lot of people, and I know sometimes the bye weeks comes at a good time, doesn't come at a good time. However you felt about that, and the 2 weeks, with all the chatter that got people, some people where they didn't like that. It reminded me a little bit of the Super Bowl. You watch the playoffs, the NFL playoffs. You're so into it every week. They're whittling it down. Championship Sunday, it's awesome, and then you're ready for football the next week, and they're like, no, you're gonna have to go ahead and wait one more week. And then they do that. They think it's gonna hype it up, but it's like everything, like after 1 day or 2 days, you say everything, everybody's analyzing it. You're getting to Wednesday in the first week, and you're like, are you kidding me? We're going to have to wait this long. But, it's all behind us now. I mean, it is the eve of Michigan and Michigan State and the showdown tomorrow night. I do have a little bit of breaking news. I didn't put this into a slide because I wasn't 100% sure. And, Josh Henschke, who publishes the Maize and Blue Review, he probably posted this and probably knew it, but I just saw the breaking news here. That's the breaking news sounder. This is going to be the Michigan uniform tomorrow. It is all blue with some maize socks, and there it is, the blue pants and the blue jersey. Whether you like that or not, everybody has an opinion on the uniforms. I like all Michigan uniforms. I like them when they win, and that has evolved over time. At first, when they started getting into that, I'm like, I don't like the uniforms. So when they had the first night game, and they had somebody were calling them bumblebees and everything. It was the very popular Denard Robinson jersey. They played Notre Dame. And I'm like, I don't like those jerseys. And then they won, and I liked them. And that's the way it's gone for me. But I almost like all the combinations. I look at them, and they look pretty good. So they go ahead and win tomorrow, which I expect them to do. I'm gonna like that jersey. I'm good with it. All right, what else? Before I give you my their final thoughts, the thoughts that I've been going through each and every day thinking about this game. I was thinking about it last night when I was watching the Thursday night game, and I watched Tom Brady. And if Tom Brady, it was a little sad watching Tom Brady last night. And I don't know if I don't think Tom Brady needs us to feel bad for him. Like Tom Brady's accomplished that. He's great and all of that. Of course, the GOAT. He's the best ever. And, to say, he should have stayed retired, that's fine. I don't think his legacy really gets hurt. Not really at all, actually. There's been so many players down through the years I always heard about. It was before my time. One of the greatest baseball players of all time, Willie Mays. And they'd always say it was so sad watching a broken down Willie Mays playing for the Mets. And I know in my lifetime, the two quarterbacks, and so it's going to be very similar to Tom Brady. Drew Brees at the end, he had a pretty good team, had it, built for the Super Bowl, and he just didn't have the pop in his arm anymore. And, he just didn't have it. And there it was, great Hall of Famer and everything else with Drew Brees. But, you saw it there. It just didn't have it in his 40s at the end. And then it was the same thing with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning is even worse than all of them. Like Peyton Manning couldn't throw the ball across the street, but he had such a good defense and he ended up winning the Super Bowl, which was the weird thing for Peyton Manning because the team around him was so good. But man, he could not throw the ball anymore. He just couldn't do it. And Brady last night looked like that. I mean, the guys that were out there with him, they didn't look so hot either. But the couple plays that make the difference that you've always seen, like, oh, Tom throwing to the tight end, he had him, instead it was like 3 yards out of his reach. Oh, he's not on the same page with Mike Evans. Oh, he undercut the, it was a little sad watching it. And I don't have to be sad for Tom Brady. It was, it was always going to be. And the one part I don't blame him, they said, 38, you're too old to play quarter. 39, you're too 40. He just kept winning and winning. It just kept going back and back. And he never would have thought at 41, 42, 43, 44 years old, that Tom Brady could just keep going, but he just kept defying odds. And, now I always wondered when it was going to catch up to him. And that looked like last night. You say all that, and they're in the NFC South, and they're a game out, like because the rest of the division is trash, and maybe Tom Brady, because you never count him out somehow, the wins a playoff game, and there he is playing for the Super Bowl again. I just don't think that's going to happen. It looked like none of that was going to happen last night. It looked like the end there for Tom Brady. Will he perk up? Maybe a couple times, maybe, but that's what I thought by watching him. Now, when it comes to Michigan and the game tomorrow and just how I'm thinking about it, I've looked at it from every angle that I think you possibly can. And here's where I'm at. When I've looked at all the stats, I've been posting the stats all week. I've been looking at the Michigan State stats. I'm looking at where Michigan ranks. You look at some of the, advanced metrics, and you can look at everything, analytics, all the different, and you could sit around and all day I could be putting the numbers up. And I did this week, all of the stats, all of them point to Michigan. Michigan is better statistically everywhere than Michigan State. Every single statistic that you can come up with, Michigan is better. And so if you're somebody that is data-driven on this game and looking at it from SB Plus to Pro Football Focus to this particular metric, Michigan has Michigan State covered in all of those. They're better on offense. They're better on defense. They're better against the run. They're better running the ball, passing, everywhere that you would want to go. Michigan is better. So statistically, Michigan or Michigan State, it's Michigan. Michigan is playing this game in Ann Arbor at Michigan Stadium tomorrow night in 30 some odd hours, right? So here we are. It's going to happen. Now you could say, well, the last time, like the Michigan, the first year that they played was at the Big House. That was the punt game. Michigan lost that one. And then 2 years later, it was the rain. And then the pandemic, throw it out. So 3 of those losses were to Michigan State at Michigan Stadium. You could say that. But would you rather have the game? You're sitting out there. Would you rather have the game? Do you think it's an advantage playing at Michigan Stadium? Or would you rather be playing up in East Lansing? I'm going to say Michigan. I'd rather play at Michigan. I'd rather play at the Big House. I'd rather play at Michigan Stadium. And that's where they're playing tomorrow. Advantage venue, Michigan being home. Advantage, Michigan. Now, the eye test, which is a lot of what people use, and you use it a little bit, let's be honest, for everything when it comes down to sports. You see it. And I don't know how much you've watched Michigan State, I watched them play their opener against Western. I wasn't breaking down the tape or anything. I was at a party out in the yard watching it, and a lot of Spartans are there. And then I watched the game when Michigan State went out to Washington. I watched that one by myself, but by the third quarter, I turned it off because it was over. The Huskies were blowing the Spartans off the field. The following week, when Michigan State took on Minnesota, that was a humiliating performance for the Spartans. The crowd completely emptied the stadium. They got shut out. They did absolutely nothing in that game. In the final second, they were able to salvage a score to not get shut out on their home field. But the only people that were left in the stands were the family. I'd say friends, but I think the friends and maybe half the family already went to the exits, by then. And there was the Maryland game and the Ohio State game. And in the Ohio State game, it wasn't as bad as the final score seemed. Ohio State called off the Dogs after the third quarter, and it was kind of the same thing against Minnesota. State did some things late when they were just getting smashed, and that's one of the parts that I think, and it's going to come up to my prediction. I think Michigan's really going to handle Michigan State, and then I think in the fourth quarter you might see Michigan State be able to put some points on the board with the game already being over to adjust the final score. That's what happened with Michigan State against Washington. That's what happened with Michigan State against Minnesota. That's what happened with Michigan State against Ohio State. Those games were more lopsided than they actually looked, but the other teams were just like, all right, let's just over, it's over. Let's just run the clock and get this over with. The one that wasn't like that was Maryland. Not that Michigan State didn't do anything in the second half of that one. It was close, but they didn't really do anything at all in the second half. Maybe a couple field goals, and Maryland was able to beat them. So the eye test, if we're looking for the advantage and where that goes to Michigan. And Michigan, you can say whatever you want about the non-conference slate. They look great. They against Maryland, they didn't look all that great against Maryland, but going to Iowa, leading 20-0, 13-0 at the half, 20-0 after 3, 27-7 with under 10 seconds to go. They look pretty good against Iowa. Indiana was a shaky first half. Remember that? What was it? It was tied at 10, but it was a dominating second half performance by Michigan against the Hoosiers. Remember the 263 yards to 29 in the second half. It was a dominating performance in the second half. Michigan gets a check mark there for the way they played in the second half against the Hoosiers. And then against Penn State, there's games where you say, I don't know how many games you say, perfect, but an impressive performance from start to finish by Michigan against Penn State. It was close for a minute, but 41-17. What was it? 16-14 at the half. But even though Michigan was dominating, you had the two plays by Penn State where you could sit there at the half and say, well, this is a dominating performance, and yet Michigan's only up by 2. That's fair. So, but the second half was, a Michigan rout, and they ended up looking very impressive in that game. So the eye test for Michigan, and you say, well, let's wait and see how they look against Penn State. And you're always proving yourself and all of that, but against Penn State, Michigan, eye test, Michigan State, advantage, Michigan. And the intangibles. What are the intangibles when you look at this game? I ask you what the intangibles are. For me, it's the rivalry, those things, what's being said, what's the mindset of the team. And for a lot of years, and this is where people get, they get bent out of shape a little bit. Those things don't matter. Whatever, rallying cries, whatever it is. But since Jim Harbaugh has a losing record against Michigan State as a head coach, since Jim Harbaugh has a losing record against Mel Tucker, and State has won the last 2 games. Any kind of Michigan overlooking Michigan State or sitting back, taking them for granted because they're like the little brother and you never respect the little brother because you just think you can just grab his candy and snatch the sack away from him anytime of candy and you could take it because you're the big brother and you can just bully him. That kind of feeling, which I think sometimes has worked against Michigan in this series. I don't see any of that this time around. I don't even know how you can. Like, I know, listen to Taylor Lewan. Maybe, they just listen to some of the Jumbo Elliott, talk about, and, 100 other players, completely just, no, we're State. But the current players, they have to look at themselves in the mirror. They can't really, be arrogant towards Michigan State. In this one. So when it comes down to the intangibles, I am going to put the for whatever it's worth. Maybe it's just worth a very little bit. I'm going to put it towards Michigan. So recapping how I look at Michigan and Michigan State previewing this game, the statistical battle, the tail of the tape, any way you want to look at it, advantage Michigan. They're playing the game at Michigan. Advantage, Michigan. The eye test, going through all of the games and what we have seen from both teams. Advantage, Michigan. And the intangibles, as I take a look at it and take a step back, I have the advantage to Michigan. So that's how I see it right now. Michigan, 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 Michigan over Michigan State. Now, I would like to ask you how you see the game tomorrow. I see it as a Michigan victory. I'll give you some specifics coming up, but that is how I am looking at the game. For you out there, I am interested in how you see the game. Let's go to the feedback. And I ask people how they see it. And we start out with Steven, who I know from earlier in the week says he's doing something with his wife tomorrow at 6:00. And I don't know exactly what they're doing, if he's going to be able to keep himself in the bubble or not, or if that's just not something that he wants to do. He's going to not be able to just sit down and watch the entire game. But let's see what Steven's saying about it. He says MSU might get a field with their barnstorming approach, and that will be close to it, 42-10, says Steven. He's correcting what he had to say. They might get a field goal. Okay, I see where you're going with it. Andres likes the uniform. So does Richard. Likes the uniform, the blue with some of that maize coming out. Richard saying maybe Tom will start showing up for Michigan games more once he retires. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I know that he's already got a job lined up, a pretty lucrative paying job, as he will go to the broadcast booth, and we'll see how he does there. Will he show up at Michigan? Maybe. We do know that he did he post it on Instagram or Twitter. He did announce and make it. He did announce that he was getting divorced. That's it was final. So there's been a lot of speculation about that, a lot of talk. It seemed like that was what was going on, and then he made it official himself. So who knows? Richard saying Johnny Unitas was the same way. What did Johnny Unitas play in his last game? Did he play for? So he always played for the Colts. They started out, the Steelers drafted Johnny Unitas. When he played for the Colts, am I saying, is it the Rams or the 49ers? One of those two. Did Johnny Unitas play for the Rams? I'm going to go with the Rams. I could be wrong on that. see what my recall is like, my sports history. Yeah. Let's see. Steven says, I'd take him on the Bears. You take Tom Brady on the Bears? You must not have watched him last night. You must not have watched the Bears play their last game. Not I don't want to sit around patting any former Ohio State quarterback on the head, but if you watched Fields play his last game, he looked pretty good. Here's Richard. This is one. It's an interesting one. However, you're thinking about the game. Richard says nobody predicting an upset makes me nervous. Sure, so everything's pointing to Michigan. Everything. Every broadcaster, everybody that's analyzing it, everyone will pick Michigan, and so that is going to make you not, feel a little nervous. Yeah, you can't tell people. There's going to be some people that are nervous any which way it goes. I get that, and so this is the card where you're like everything's pointing to Michigan, and that makes you nervous. So, and you can't really do anything about that. Richard, you're somebody that gets nervous. For the games, I understand. Now, you're not down there. People like to say, well, what's the team? Do they really think that, they're just going to be able to roll the helmets out there? And again, I think it's going to be really easy for the coaching staff and everybody surrounding the team to get down there and say, you guys, you haven't won anything. This team, you think about however you feel about the pandemic year, Michigan was favored by this many points of the pandemic year. I was laughing at Michigan State and thinking that it was going to be, 50, 60 to nothing and and they went out there and guess what? They lost, so they have the reminders. The guys that even played on the team that you can't take Michigan State for granted. Even if everybody thinks you're going to win the game by 50 points, you have to go down there as a player and you have to take it completely seriously. And you have to give them your utmost attention and all of that. You can't be acting like Taylor Lewan and, a lot of other former Braylon Edwards and just, laughing at Michigan State. You do that, then, I don't know if you deserve to lose, but you're not taking your opponent seriously. You're playing with fire if you do that, but I don't sense any of that for Michigan. Let's see. Andres is predicting an upset group of guys on the bus ride to East Lansing at around 11:30. Say, there you go. Nobody's predicting an upset. They'll be upset on the way back to Michigan State. With the long drive, David, we still beat Ohio State. All right, you're already looking ahead. I get it. There's some Michigan State folks that are in the chat. I'll just leave them there. We're taking your feedback right now to see where you are at, where the people are at. I've given my thoughts on the beginning of the game, at the beginning of the show on the game. Jason, happy early Halloween. Your squash is starting to look like a sloth from the Goonies. Hey, you guys, just joking. Yeah, well, let's take a look. Let's take a better close-up look of the squash pumpkin. Here it is. And that's it. That's a battery. It's not a real candle in there, battery operated. It carved relatively easy. I've never carved a squash before. I actually thought I've never attempted to grow pumpkins before. A friend of mine, Ken, is a big pumpkin grower, and he loves Halloween, and he's always carving out his pumpkins. And I thought about doing that, but then if you don't know, I've told you I have goats. And I thought my goats, I'm not going to have any kind of garden because goats just eat everything. So why would I do that? They'll just eat it. But then these, just throwing stuff out into the compost, things just pop up on their own. And then this popped up. And then, I had to look, do pumpkins start out green? And it said yes. So when I saw this, I thought, I got a pumpkin. Look at that. I'm going to be all right for for Halloween, and yet it never. This was as big as it got, and so that's my story when it came down. But next year I'm going to plant pumpkins, and there'll be pumpkins all over the studio, all over the house, and everything else. Happy Halloween to you too, Jason. What's the best? Let me take some more of the feedback. It's relative, and it applies to Michigan and Michigan State. When I ask you what the best Halloween costume that you ever saw, there's some great, fun ones. This one's popular because of what's happening. TV shows or whatever else. I don't know. Would it be Jeffrey Dahmer, the Netflix? Will there be people dressing up like Dahmer? I don't know how that. You get the '80s haircut, the thick glasses, and maybe you walk around with some kind of heart. Maybe that people would get that. I'm not going as Jeffrey Dahmer, but in 2000, let's see, in Michigan State, the '99, I went there in an RV. 2001, I took an RV up to Michigan State and stayed the night at a couple miles away from the stadium in an RV park. But that night, I went to East Lansing and went to the bars, and it was a Halloween weekend, and everybody was dressed up. And I don't remember much. I remember the few, guys, the party that we were with, and we had a great time. But everybody, almost everybody was dressed up in Halloween costumes. But the best Halloween costume was a gentleman that was dressed up as the Pope, and he had the high hat, and he had, I don't know, the cross. Maybe he had a Bible. I don't remember that part. But what I can remember is that the Pope was so popular. Everybody wanted to come up to the Pope, and they just wanted. And the Pope would, he would bless you. The Pope would, he would hold his hand over your head. He would give you a wave, and just everybody would clear the way. And it was this amazing costume, the silk robe or whatever it is, the all white robe. And I always thought, if I'm ever going to a Halloween party and I'm going to buy, and I don't want to win the costume party or whatever else, or I want I'm going as the Pope. Because that guy was the most popular guy. And I kept, every time I saw him, like, hey, there's the Pope. And he'd give me the whatever. And it was great. Believe me, it worked. It happens. Andre says, the Piper is calling Mel Tucker to collect. We get some Mel Tucker shots on here. Mel coming to do some hard time at the big house. The Blue Ox is coming to join Paul Bunyan again tomorrow night. I always like when Michigan beats Michigan State and they get Paul Bunyan and then they put the helmet on Paul. I like that. I've never held the Paul Bunyan Trophy, but back in the day, Michigan in their football office used to have a recruiting lounge, and they had all the trophies in there. They had the brown jug. They play for one with Northwestern now, but it's a huge the base, the Paul Bunyan, like he's pretty tall, and then they got the gigantic base. It's been pretty ugly trophy, but I can recall going in there and seeing it, and then it doesn't look very good when you have an empty trophy case. You go in there, and there it is. You're like, where's Paul Bunyan? And if they still have that same recruiting lounge, it's empty right now. So I wonder if Harbaugh or they tell the staff, clean the mantle off there, get it nice and shiny, because that's where Paul Bunyan is coming back, and he's going to be right there on that perch. Yeah, there it is. Stephen, who is hanging out with his wife, is going to be watching on his phone. He's going to be watching it all. Watching the game on the phone. Hey, not all that bad. Well, sometimes listening to the game, watching the game on your phone, Not ideal, but not the worst thing. All right, a couple more here on the feedback. I could just be clicking these off all day. Paul, close first half, but Michigan scores TDs on 4 of 5 possessions in the second half. Richard has a 60-10 score. Michigan. Account 22, over and under 5 false starts for Sparty. 5, I'll go with the under. The crowd will be nuts. That's true. I'm with you on that. Tom wants to know, what will Blue add to the playbook on Saturday? I foresee, and it's coming up in the prediction, so I'll give you some of the added things that I think that Michigan will put in there. Jason is predicting a 49-13 score, and looking at the second half being key, very physical. Wants to see how the refs will be calling the game. Hopefully they won't be calling it like last year. Torin, Doran. Michigan wins 47-13. Account 22 is predicting a sweaty Mel Tucker. Yeah. That can happen quick. So for me, when it comes down to the prediction side, I think that the Wolverines will get on the board first, and after the first quarter, I have Michigan leading the game 14-3. I do think Michigan State will get on the board. I have touchdowns coming from Blake Corum and Ronnie Bell in the first quarter. I think in the second quarter, Michigan will score a touchdown, and they'll tack on a Jake Moody field goal before the half, and Michigan State will score a touchdown in the first half. And at the break, I have Michigan leading the game 24-10. In the third, I've got Michigan State opening it up. I'm sorry, Michigan. I don't know what Michigan State might be opening up. I've got Michigan opening it up, getting 2 touchdowns, 1 defensive. I've got a pick 6 coming from Jymon Green. I went with Jymon over DJ Turner because DJ just it could be Turner. He's pretty good with fumbles and taking it back. Sometimes they bounce off of him. But I like Jymon Green. And you know what? Green against the green. I kind of like, just how that sounds. So I think Jymon Green gets a pick 6. I think Blake Corum goes in for his second touchdown in the third quarter. And Michigan, after 3, will be covering that big fat 23 points. They'll be up 38-10. And this game will be over. But like Michigan State has done against Washington when they were getting killed after 3 quarters, against Minnesota when they were getting shut out to the last 17 seconds of the game, and against Ohio State, who called the dogs off in the third quarter, and Michigan State got some, by the way, scores late to make it look closer than it actually was. I think State will then get a score in the fourth quarter. And if you're taking those 23 points, 20, 30, 40, it just, that's why that 23 would scare me. That's the part on this Halloween weekend that scares me. Ooh, the big fat 23, because I think Harbaugh, if it goes to the way that I'm predicting that it goes, that Michigan gets up by 28 or 30 points in the second half, does Jim Harbaugh just keep, let's just keep, piling it on? No, I think Harbaugh gathers everybody in and says, we'll just blow them off the line. Dominate the line of scrimmage. You establish the line of scrimmage in the first half, and you exert your will, and then you just punish them in the second half with a running game. And you take the clock out. But then you start, you get C.J. Stokes in there, a third-string running back, and get him some love. Would I like to see Andrell Anthony score a touchdown? Sure, I would. Do I think Michigan uses Roman Wilson on those bubble screens and those quick throws and those little curls, because he's a dynamic athlete with outstanding speed? Yeah. Would it be awesome to see J.J. McCarthy hook up for a long touchdown? Yeah. All those things are out there, and those things could happen. I do think if you're even calling these wrinkles, this doesn't sound like such a wrinkle, but Michigan has not used AJ Henning very much in the run game. Whether the one game they had him in the backfield, but having him in the backfield, using Henning in the end around game, I would predict in the first series that AJ Henning is going to either get the ball as a running back or in the end around game. It's not like huge trickery or anything else, but you give him some eye candy here in the Halloween, having him run through, just see if you can test the eyes of the linebackers and to see what they're doing, those kind of things. Just give him some stuff to look at, but then, handing it off to Henning and test the speed of the Michigan State linebackers and safeties. I think that, that they will do that. But other than that, I foresee Michigan, not that they could come out. I think what is going to be dictated, and I know they'll script 10 to 15 plays, but what should be should dictate how they operate. I know there's folks that do shows like this to say, well, this is what I hear they're going to do. Here's what they're going to do. Michigan, if they walk up to the line and they're going to run to the right and Michigan State's got everybody crowded up there, well, you know what they're going to do? They're going to run to the left. And if they have too many people down in stuff in the run box, which I think Michigan State will do, I think what J.J. McCarthy is going to do is he's then going to throw the ball. He's going to change the play at the line. And Michigan can throw the ball as well as they can run it. There's no need to go and getting stubborn, with, trying to establish the line of scrimmage with the run game. If Michigan State is demanding that you go over there and you can have these single coverage, you go ahead and take it. And I think Michigan is going to be more than willing to go out there and do it. If I'm Michigan State and I've watched Michigan and you watch the film, J.J. McCarthy, when he does roll out towards the right, he is fabulous being able to do that. That would really scare me if I was the long bearded Spartan coach, their defensive coordinator. That would scare me. So if I'm Michigan, I think a counter off of that. He's so good at rolling out right and throwing, but I think State will have practiced that and they will know, like, oh, we got to watch out when McCarthy's going over here. I think McCarthy planning, and when he's rolling right, throwing back, he's got the kind of arm strength where he can fire that ball down the left side. I'll make a prediction. McCarthy rolling out to the right, firing the ball 50 yards back to the left, down the left sideline for a 30-yard gainer. So somebody like Andrell Anthony, there's a prediction for you. I think something like that's going to happen. I think it'll be open. I think you'll have the coverage. I think State will be cheating on that because they have watched the film. They have to respect that. If they don't, McCarthy just rolling out to the right, it is going to be like taking candy from a baby out there in the passing game. But the way Michigan State's defense has been playing this year, Michigan can just pick and choose what they want. It's like going up to your neighbors on Halloween, the neighborhood that everybody knows you. What do? They pull out the big candy bars. Oh, you want a Butterfinger and a Reese's peanut butter cup? Go ahead, whatever you want, full size. Michigan has that available to them. If I'm Matt Weiss or Sharon Moore, whoever's calling plays in here, or if Harbaugh, they've got king size Reese's peanut butter cups, Butterfingers, Snickers. They have it all available, whatever they want to do. They don't have to just take one. Do whatever you want. You want to run Corum? They should be able to plow horse right down the field. Work in a little Donovan Edwards, Pepper the tight end, Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson, Andrell Anthony, A.J. Henning running around. It's all there for them. Michigan defensively, the way they've been getting after the quarterback, they got more sacks than they did last year when Hutchinson and Ajabo were going nuts. Do I think that Oki, Yabi Oki could have a huge game? That would scare me if I was Peyton Thorne. Mike Morris would scare me worse than the Dahmer Netflix show that's being played out right. That would be giving me nightmares watching the film. I would be scared of Jalen Harrell if I was a Michigan State offensive lineman. Not Nightmare on Elm Street, Nightmare on Main Street. That's what would scare me with this game tomorrow night if I was a Spartan. And if I was Mel Tucker, I would be sweating bullets. Because Michigan, you can just pick your poison. You want the firing squad? Take it. That's how I'm looking at it. That's how I feel about things right now. That's how I am looking at it. Andres thinks Davis Warren and CJ Stokes get some good reps. I'm with you. I'm with Travis. MSU plans on stopping the run. Sure. I sure hope we can run the ball against a stacked box. If not, Harbaugh better not get stubborn and let JJ win it. I'm with you. Well, some breaking news coming in here. Let's see what it is. All right. It was the publisher. I thought maybe he had some like big news for me, but just saying what's up. He liked the opening music. I was getting some copyright stuff going on, playing some mixing up some popular music. YouTube's not, they don't like that the most. You got to go through the proper channels and everything, and I'll do it. I need to get like a mixing board and, start doing my own scratching and mixing and maybe some drums or something. Get my own thing going. Original music and bumper music. Okay. This account 22's got something for State. Averaging 65 rush yards per game the last 3. That's scary. Account 22. I mean, that's not scaring me. They're not dressing up like a scary team at all. Michigan State's coming to the door, ringing the bell. They're like, is what you hope for when you get a little older. You got the scary music in the background. Somebody rings the doorbell and you go up, and it's the neighbor kids. They're coming on down the street. Mel and the family's out there, and their little kids come up. They're dressed up like a little princess. So you're like, oh, it's so cute. That's what Michigan State's coming in. Very cute. Pat him on the head a little bit. You don't have to worry about being scared and going to the door. Like somebody's gonna have a hatchet or something. No. This is these guys are gonna be dressed up cute. And those white Michigan State outfits that they're bringing to the table. Yeah. They're scary bad. Trickery should be expected from Michigan State. Yeah, you go to your Halloween party, and back in the day, I never did this, but I think it's back for the old times. You had Bob for apples at a Halloween party. You expect somebody's gonna jump out and scream at you. Michigan's anticipating something spooky behind the corner. Somebody jumps out. Ah! Jaden Davis throws the ball on a rollout. I think they're expecting trickery, trick and treats from Michigan State. Gadgets. When you have a team that's got nothing going on, that has to resort to trickery. Tricks are fine, but if you can't do the main stuff, you're in trouble. And Michigan State is in trouble in this game. All signs point to that. They will be unmasked as the team that they are, which is a bad football team. I don't think they can point to anything that Michigan has. I think, Michigan can walk up to them and they can grab the pillowcases that they're bringing in. If they want their candy, they can just snatch the bag from them and take it. And in this case, the bag's a football. Michigan could just walk up and smack the ball away from them and take it. That's what Michigan can bully Michigan State tomorrow night. And I think that they will bully them. I think that they're going to come out and bully Michigan State. That's how I see the game playing out. All right. A last thought from Travis. MSU always runs better on Michigan than their season averages. I think it's the intensity of the rivalry. And I do believe that, and this is the one kind of thing that you need to think about when you're watching the game tomorrow, it's going to be, like watching the beginning of Amityville Horror or something. You're going to be getting scared. The Indiana and Michigan game at the half was 10-10. Michigan killed Indiana in that game, dominated them in the second half. The last game that Michigan played, they're only beating Penn State by 2 points at the half. Ended up killing them, 41-17. Don't get spooked. Don't get scared. Don't be like those kids in the commercial where they got a running car and they go and hide behind the chainsaws and then run to the cemetery. Know that you've seen it before. Michigan's a second half team. Now I hope they jump up and get up big in the first half, like at Iowa. And like I am predicting, I think the score is going to be 24-10 at the half. But I think Michigan will win this one 38-17. You can join me and Jim Scarcelli tomorrow after the game, post-game live, right here on Maize and Blue Review, after Michigan and Michigan State. We'll be talking about the game. I think that you want to remember this because the game starts at 7:30, whatever you're doing Halloween-wise or, late into the night, it's there for you and it's available. We go on live. But, Sunday morning when you wake up, after you watch the game, you say, I want some Michigan football content. Know that it's there. The Maize and Blue Review. In the post game of how it went down from U of M, MSU 22. Will Michigan get to 50 points? That wouldn't be a huge shock. 52-10. Count 22 has it. David wants 50. All right. Everybody have a great rest of your day today. And tomorrow. I'm watching the World Series tonight. I'm watching Penn State and Ohio State at noon. I've got a charcoal grill. I got the charcoal chimney. I've got that planned to break out some point tomorrow before the game. Lining up. Things are lining up. Looking pretty good. Everybody enjoy the weekend. We'll talk with you tomorrow after the game. Till then, goodbye.